And now I've become involved, very much more recently, because I was retained by Lou Elizondo, who was the head of the top secret program inside the Pentagon itself to continue investigating the UFO phenomenon. The internal documents that he was able to extract, similar to the Pentagon papers, that were top secret, and he got a hold of these things, and it showed the details of the planned program that they had to suppress anybody who tried to talk about UFOs. And what they would do is they would target these people with a totally unconstitutional, totally illegal, totally criminal program of attempting to destroy their lives. The campaign that had been mounted by the Central Intelligence Agency and the covert operations people inside the Pentagon that had been so effective that the members of Congress didn't even dare come to the press conference. In addition to the command that the Senate has passed, that the president has to establish a UFO control disclosure campaign that is to be undertaken by the president to make this information available to the people. Because it's important to understand that some of these civilizations have existed for 1 billion years. Our government is in possession of a non-human origin extraterrestrial spacecraft and the bodies of the occupants of the craft. We, as a human species, the Homo sapiens, on this planet, are not, in fact, the only intelligent, sentient beings in the universe.
Our guest today is Mr. Daniel Sheehan. Danny is a federal civil rights attorney, a speaker, an educator, and is founder of the New Paradigm Institute. He is a veteran of more than a dozen landmark American civil rights cases and has served as chief counsel in numerous precedent-setting cases. Danny has also served in a number of additional constitutional appellate cases before the United States Supreme Court and federal courts of appeal. We want to welcome you to the show today, Danny. Thank you so much for being with us.
Terrific. I really appreciate it. It's a privilege. Thank you.
Well, it's certainly more of a privilege for us. So we really appreciate your time today. And we're really looking forward to diving into some of these topics. So I know you are quite an expert on a lot of subjects. So we can't wait to get started with that. So Danny, first of all, I know you've been quite passionate for pretty much your whole life, from what I understand, about the topic of bringing disclosure of non-human biological beings and UAPs to the people. So what made this topic so important for you?
Well, it's interesting that to get down to the real basics of it. As soon as I became aware, when I was only like 7 years old or so, when I became aware of what stars were, that they were not just twinkling lights up in the sky at night, that they were other suns, and therefore that I just completely assumed correctly that there were planets that were orbiting these stars, and that I just assumed initially that there must be people there. There must be other people on these other planets. I used to sit down in the yard as it got to be dark at night and figure out where these stars first started coming into view. And then I would kind of focus on one and just, they kind of pulse, the stars. It's how you can tell a star from a planet. The planets have this constant bright light, but the stars pulse. And I would sit and watch the pulsing star, and then you start projecting kind of, the kind of planets that are going around the star and the people that are on there looking up into their nighttime sky and seeing our star, and then thinking about us being here. And that it would kind of transport me into a state of consciousness where it seemed really extraordinarily strange what we were doing to each other here on our planet. Getting into wars, and the Korean War was going on when I was little, and all these different wars and people threatening each other with thermonuclear bombs and stuff, and it seemed completely inconsistent with this kind of larger perspective on reality itself. So it became extremely important to me to try to figure out who these people were on these other planets and whether they had faced these same kind of challenges and how they may have overcome them. And then I discovered that UFOs were coming here. There's some of these people from these other stars that are coming here. Now, this is really far out. And so I started looking into that when I got to be 8 or 9 years old. And so I realized that what I should do is I should become an astronomer and be able to spend my time getting to figure all this stuff out. But then I realized that that was just a lot of math and physics and stuff. And it didn't really have to do with the people that are coming. And so I decided I was going to become an astronaut. And that was before there were astronauts. But all they had was like Tom Corbett, Space Cadet, and they had these movies like Conquest of Space. They had a handful of these movies, and this was before they started having all these horror movies in like the mid-50s. Of how the aliens are coming to eat us and invaders from Mars and it came from outer space and all those things. And so I kept thinking, gee, that's really unfortunate. These movies that they've got really bad galactic politics. They're kind of dissing these other beings, and I was concerned about that. But I ended up being one of the very top nominees for the United States Air Force Academy because I was going to go to the Air Force Academy and become a pilot and become an astronaut from there. I was interviewed by the United States Senator, Jacob Javits, for the senatorial appointment from New York State. And when he asked me why I wanted to be an astronaut, I told him that we were in this extraordinary period during my lifetime when we were actually going to get to go out into outer space and actually encounter other people from these other planets. And he looked a little bit shocked, and Jacob Javits said, "You actually believe that there's other people on other planets?" And I said, "Sure." I said, "So do you. You must. You're a United States Senator. You can't not know that." And he was so kind of thunderstruck by my response that he actually it shocked him into being honest. And he said, "Look, I have to admit to you, I shouldn't tell you this, but I've already given the appointment to the son of one of my major financial contributors to my senatorial campaign." And I said, "Really?" I said, "You're not really allowed to do that." Or he said, "Well, but look, I'll give you the appointment," he said, "to the Naval Academy, and you can become a Navy pilot." I said, "I'm not into boats." I said, "I'm into airplanes." And he said, "No," he said, "you can get to be a pilot." But he said, "Okay, but look, you can go down to your congressperson, and your congressperson will give you their congressional appointment. Now, you won't get the senatorial appointment, which is the big deal. But let me be clear," he said, "that after you've been at the Air Force Academy for a year or so, nobody really distinguishes between who got the senatorial appointments and who got the congressional appointments." So I said, "Okay, I'll go take the congressional appointment." But it turns out that the congressperson, Carlton King, gave the appointment to the son of the Republican mayor of Glens Falls, where I was born. And this kid was number 7 in our congressional district competition. And so I said to myself, this is really bizarre. They're not even appointing to the military academies the most qualified people. This is the government doesn't seem to be working correctly. Things are a little bit out of tune here. So I'll have to become a lawyer, and I'll become a lawyer for a period of time, and I'll help get our country back in tune with how it's supposed to function. But I discovered when I came out of, I went to Harvard College, went to Harvard Law School, and when I came out of the law school, I discovered, we did the Pentagon Papers case. I got to read all 47 volumes of the secret papers of the Vietnam thing. I established the right of journalists to protect their confidential news sources. So I got all kinds of confidential sources from the journalists that I was in communication with. And I did the Watergate burglary case. I was in F. Lee Bailey's office. We represented James McCord, who was the former CIA wiretapping specialist, who was one of the burglars. I started finding all these things out about what was really going on behind the scenes. And I realized that our country wasn't just a little bit out of tune. It was playing an entirely different song than we had been trained to believe, in high school and even through Harvard College, in Harvard Law School, that things weren't just out of tune. They were just malfunctioning in a big way. And so I turned my attention to dealing with those things throughout time. But I kept my eye on this issue, constantly monitoring it. And when President Carter was elected in November of 1976, you'll want to talk about that probably throughout the discussion here we're having. But he was contacted, as soon as he became president, when he was elected president in November of 1976, one of the very first things he did was ask this head of the Central Intelligence Agency to come down to Plains, Georgia, before Carter had even come to Washington, and demanded to be briefed in on the UFO issue. And the head of the Central Intelligence Agency at that time was George H.W. Bush, who had been appointed by the new president that had come in, when Nixon resigned, in came George Bush Sr., and he refused to brief Carter on the UFO issue, telling Carter that as president, he had no need to know. And I'm sure that he didn't brief Gerald Ford either, who had appointed him to be the head of the CIA after Nixon resigned. And what happened is President Carter contacted Congress and said, "This is outrageous. I'm president of the United States. The CIA director is refusing to brief me on this. And I don't want to go to war with the CIA immediately after becoming president and spend all that political capital. So I'd like to have the Congress help me investigate this." And so he contacted the Science and Technology Division of Congress, the House of Representatives, and they assigned the Congressional Research Service to do an investigation to find out all the information that the United States government knew about the UFO phenomenon and about the extraterrestrial civilization that seemed to be responsible for these UFOs. And that's when I got contacted. By that time, I had gone back to Harvard Divinity School to study ethics once I realized how completely malfunctioning our government was and how unethical the national security state people were that were running the military-industrial complex. And so I'd gone to divinity school to do master's work and PhD work. That's where I was when I got recruited to become a general counsel for the United States Jesuit Order in their national headquarters in Washington, in their social ministry office. And that was how I got contacted by the Congressional Research Service under President Carter to become special counsel for that investigation. So I kept turning my focus onto this issue, even though I was engaged in all of these other issues, doing litigation and investigations pertaining to it. But that's how I became professionally involved back in the very beginning of 1977, and I've been involved in this professionally since then for like 47 years.
The first time I heard about that, about Carter going and trying to access the UFO documentation that the government has and was being denied by that, was, I believe, through Dr. Stephen Greer. And I was just so shocked when I heard that, to think that somebody at that level of the government is being denied access to documentation that should be for the people. And obviously, I feel like this maybe was the beginning of the secrecy of this whole issue. Do you feel like that was the start of the control of this topic?
Oh, no. Oh, no. That was just a manifestation of the long ongoing program that was going on. We now know from Richard Dolan's work. Richard Dolan was a PhD historian at the University of Pennsylvania who chose to do his PhD thesis in history on the history of the UFO phenomenon. And he has been able to extract from the government the documents proving that this cover-up began virtually immediately after the Roswell event in July of 1947. This is like 30 years earlier than the election of President Carter, and that what happened is immediately when they recovered the crashed saucer at Roswell, the saucer was secretly taken to Wright Field in Ohio. We know that because we were ultimately able to read the cable, the telegram that was in the hand of General Ramey when he got the fake photograph taken of the weather balloon debris, that he demanded that the newspaper in Roswell come over and take the photograph of the wreckage of the weather balloon And it turns out that General Ramey had right in his hand, kneeling down next to the weather balloon debris, he had the cable that ordered him to, quote, take the disc to right field and bring the bodies. So
Wow.
we knew
Incredible.
that's what happened. And so what happened is immediately that Truman met with the actually some of the same people he'd already assigned to a hardcore secret team that was, I don't want to get too far afield, but he had back in December of 1945, at the end of the World War II, they discovered that the Japanese had hidden literally trillions of dollars of gold and diamonds and platinum and silver bars in the Philippines. And these were discovered by the U.S. Army at the end of World War II. What Truman did is, through General MacArthur, they gathered up 12 tranches of these worth $1.2 trillion, and they brought them to a bank in Switzerland and deposited them there and used that money to fund covert operation. And Truman kept that secret, and he appointed a private group of people to run the trust of that secret covert operation. And so when 2 years later, in July of 1947, when they recovered the first of these UFO craft, they kept it secret, and they set up a similar group, which, whether it was called Majestic 12 or some other code name, but it appears to be called Majestic 12, that there were 12 people, some of them inside the government and some of them as private business people, part of the kind of business elite from Brown Brothers Harriman, this particular private investment group that was based in New York. That Truman put that group together, and they became in charge of this super secret program to attempt to recover other UFOs, to investigate where they were coming from, who the civilization was that was bringing these UFOs to our planet, what their agenda was, and also, very importantly, how to secretly, potentially back engineer in this UFO to see if they could use it to develop a secret weapon system. And so this had the veil of ultimate secrecy, right from that point in time, in July of 1947, 30 years earlier than President Carter's the denial of information to him. And so this Majestic 12, this MJ-12 group, kept this completely secret, not only from presidents, but of course all the people in Congress. They kept it secret from most of the people in the military. There was just a very tiny handful of people that knew about this program, and they had secret funding through the tranche of gold and silver and platinum that they had taken out of the Philippines to use for helping to finance this under Truman. And so they set up this super secret program as early as July of 1947, and that's been going on ever since. And so the effort to get, quote, disclosure that I have been involved in for the last 47 years has been the attempt to find out what it is that has been learned by our United States government and by this secret group of people, this Majestic 12 group, and their progeny, because all of those people have passed away by this time. That was like 79 years ago. So that there's new generations that have become part of this new cabal, this Majestic 12 group, and they have designated just individual people inside the Pentagon, individual people sometimes inside of the government, and certain private aerospace corporations have been briefed in on this super secret program that we're attempting to get disclosed to the people, just like I was involved in getting the 47 volumes of the Pentagon Papers. It's 47 volumes of all the internal cables and telegrams and everything that were reflective of what the real policies were in invading and attempting to occupy South Vietnam. So this is very similar to that, and that's one of the reasons that I've been so deeply involved in it, because I had developed the legal capacities to figure out how to go about getting disclosed information that was held super secret by our United States national security state. And that's how I became involved in it.
Why do you think this information has been a secret for so long? Like, why are they keeping it such a secret? The powers that be.
Well, the initial motive was to try to back engineer the technology that they had gotten from the initial craft to use it in a secret weapons program. They realized that if they could figure out the technology as to how these UFOs were held, that they could possibly have faster than light vehicles. They could have jet fighters that could travel, at 20,000 miles an hour. If they could figure out how they're shielded against friction in our atmosphere, as the UFOs clearly are. The UFOs could be going 20,000 miles an hour and then do a direct 90-degree turn right out of going straight forward at 20,000 miles an hour and come out of the 90-degree turn going 20,000 miles an hour. And that whatever that technology was, they wanted it. And they wanted to keep it super secret that they had recovered it. And so what they did is they set up a program not only of just, quote, keeping it secret, but in suppressing anybody else from finding out about it. And so that if anybody saw a UFO and tried to get it reported to the government, as the documents that Richard Dolan had gathered in writing his a PhD thesis, which he basically ended up publishing, which is called UFOs in the National Security State by Richard Dolan. It's a 2-volume edition, and he lays out in detail the internal documents that he was able to extract, similar to the Pentagon Papers, that were top secret. And he got a hold of these things, and it showed the details of the planned program that they had to suppress anybody who tried to talk about UFOs, and that they specifically set up the policy of declaring these people to be crazy, that they were mentally ill. Anybody who thought that UFOs were real, anybody that thought that extraterrestrial life existed, they were so aggressive in attempting to keep this secret that they began to mount a secret war against anybody who attempted to communicate to people that this was going on. Now, this probably was a fool's errand, to try to suppress this, since the UFOs were flying around and people were seeing them and people were taking photographs of them. And what they would do is they would target these people with a totally unconstitutional, totally illegal, totally criminal program of attempting to destroy their lives, destroy their family life, to destroy their careers. And they began doing this. And they were not only suppressing people inside any government, military, or intelligence group that found out about these things. They would turn on them and tell people they were crazy, and they would order them to go get a psychiatric exam right away. And that's how John Mack became involved in it, who was the chairman of the Department of Clinical Psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. He was the guy to whom a number of these people had been ordered to go get a psychiatric exam. And Dr. Mack, after having examined a number of these high-ranking military officials and others who tried to tell people about this, he said, look, these people are not crazy, that they're totally within the normal parameters of mental health, and yet they all keep insisting that they know this information. And so John ended up writing a book about it. And the campaign of ridicule and denigration of people who believed that UFOs were real and believed that they were actually coming from an extraterrestrial star system, that they were being castigated as mentally ill. And the program had been so effective that Harvard University itself, when Dr. Mack, the head of their Department of Clinical Psychiatry at the Harvard Medical School, went public about this information, that they attempted to suppress him and brought him up in front of a tribunal of faculty people in 1994 and virtually threatened to revoke his tenure if he didn't remain silent about this. That's when he retained me to be his attorney. And it was in that context that I began to learn even more about this than I had learned when I was special counsel to President Carter's investigation back in 1977. So here I was now in 1994 being legal counsel for Dr. John Mack at Harvard. And John introduced me to virtually all of the top people around the world who were the experts in this particular area. You get to meet the head of the Federal Aviation Agency's investigative group inside the government that were investigating the UFOs. Got to meet general officers. For example, I got to meet the commanding officer at the Malmstrom Air Force Base, who was the commander of a nuclear missile site, a Minuteman nuclear missile site in 1967, where a UFO came across the top of it and shut off all 10 of the Minuteman missiles that are all independently wired. I got to meet all of these people to bring them in as witnesses to testify to Harvard University in what we were going to mount as a grand round, basically, at Harvard, to brief Harvard in, which was my college and my law school and my divinity school background. I had this opportunity to try to brief Harvard University about this information back in 1994, and they just viewed it as completely anathema because they had been subjected to the same psychological operation directed by the Central Intelligence Agency and the United States Defense Department to excoriate and denigrate anybody who tried to talk to people about the UFO phenomenon. And so that's how I began to get more and more information, got to meet more and more of the top level people around the world that are involved in this. I became legal counsel for Dr. Mack's project on extraordinary experience research there in Cambridge. And so I got to meet a significant number of experiencers, as we call them, people who not only had seen UFOs up close, but had actually encountered UFO beings, the people that were actually flying these UFOs. And so the people had met these UFO people, and the UFO people were communicating with them telepathically and trying to warn them that we as a human species had to get rid of all of these nuclear weapons, that this was going to destroy our planet, that it was going to destroy the life-generating capacity of our planet, that our planet Earth is one of the comparatively rare planets. It's not unique, but it's comparatively rare in our Milky Way galaxy that actually gestate life. If we have a thermonuclear war, it's going to destroy the capacity of our planet to gestate life. When these encounters would take place, when individual human beings would actually encounter a UFO, basically landed on the ground and be taken aboard the craft, they were being telepathically communicated with by these beings. And they were telling them that they have to get rid of the nuclear weapons. This is going to destroy your planet. And these beings also told them, you have to stop contaminating your planet. You are pouring all of these kind of effluents into your environment. You're pouring poisoned chemicals and stuff into the streams. You've got nuclear, you're using nuclear power, which is generating plutonium waste, which is going to poison your entire planet. Because if it gets into the water systems of your planet and into the air of your planet, it's going to destroy the life-generating function of your planet. So these beings appeared to be extraordinarily concerned about what was being done by the national security state to develop and distribute nuclear weapons, not only for the United States, but they would sneak nuclear weapons to places like Israel and South Africa and Brazil. This was all being done by the United States to try to place strategic nuclear weapons around the world so that we could threaten the world into, according to their own documents, establish full spectrum military dominance over the planet. And that was a terrible mission to be assigned to our military people and our intelligence community people. So I became aware of this, and from a legal constitutional point of view, I saw that was a terrible threat, not only to our planet and to the life-generating capacity of our planet, but more prosaically, a fundamental threat to our constitutional government. to allow this thing to be going on. So I became more and more involved in it, and I became a legal counsel for the Project for Extraordinary Experience Research with Dr. Mack in Cambridge. And I later became legal counsel for the Disclosure Project with Dr. Stephen Greer. And I was the person in charge of vetting who the witnesses were that we found to be adequately credible from a legal point of view with regard to court admissible evidence to present to the world, which we did in May of 2001 at the Disclosure Project at the National Press Club. We brought 24 major firsthand witnesses from mainly inside the government to communicate to members of Congress this was true. But the campaign that had been mounted by the Central Intelligence Agency and the covert operations people inside the Pentagon that had been so effective that the members of Congress didn't even dare come to the press conference. They would have to sneak people from their staff in civilian clothes, not even wear their suits, but just come, like regular people coming in off the street to come to the press conference to figure this information out. Like I brought the commander of the Maelstrom base, the Air Force colonel, I brought him to meet his congressperson to tell the congressperson face to face about the UFO that came over their base back in 1967 up at Maelstrom, up in Montana, and shut off all our nuclear missiles. And the congressperson was so frightened of the national security state that he didn't even dare tell anybody about it. That's how serious this problem was. And so I devoted myself to trying to get disclosure, to work through the constitutional structures, to try to literally encourage the members of Congress to take this issue up and to insist upon getting briefed in on this information. And so that I became an integral part of the Disclosure Project. That in addition to working with Dr. Mack as my client and working with the Project for Extraordinary Experience Research and meeting the experiencers, I ended up being able to meet all of these other witnesses that Dr. Greer had very, very important, undertaken, assiduous work to reach out and find these people and get them interviewed initially so that I could re-interview them and determine which of these 24 people we were going to present to the world, which we did back in May of 2001. So I've been at this for 47 years, and now I've become involved, very much more recently because I was retained by Lou Elizondo, who was the head of the top secret program inside the Pentagon itself to continue investigating the UFO phenomenon and attempting to find out what the source of this non-human intelligence, as they call it, this extraterrestrial civilization, to find out what they could about it. But it was being done inside the military. And so that the prism through which they perceive the entire UFO issue and the entire existence of this extraterrestrial civilization as some kind of a binary dialectical threat to our civilization or our planet. What I've been endeavoring to do is to try to get Congress to become involved in this, to get briefed up on this so that they can take responsibility as our elected leaders for determining what the policy should be with regard to our relationship with this extraterrestrial civilization, rather than having it be myopically prismed through the lens of military threat. That's what I've been involved in. And I know that Dr. Greer wants that to be done. I know that Dr. John Mack wanted this to be done. I know that the people that are involved in the entire disclosure movement around the planet want to have this done. We want to get our elected legislative leaders briefed in on what this information is so they can then decide what the process is by means of which this information needs to be conveyed to the people so that we can adjust the different aspects of our human culture to adjust to this new information, which is going to be substantial. But at the present time, the military and the intelligence community is kind of under the whip hand of this Majestic 12 type group that still wants to keep it secret so that they can uniquely gain the advantage of weaponizing this technology, which is a threat to our entire planet and a threat fundamentally to our entire future relationship with the extraterrestrial civilization that surrounds us everywhere.
It's just amazing, Danny, how pervasive this secrecy issue is on this topic. And I'm just wondering what can be done, or can anything be done to uncover these unacknowledged special access programs that exist inside the government?
Well, what can be done is what we're doing. We have now succeeded in getting the overwhelming majority, 89 of the 100 senators in the United States Senate, all across the political spectrum. For example, we have Chuck Schumer, who is the majority leader for the Democratic Party, and we have Marco Rubio, who's the ranking member on the Intelligence Committee in the Republican Party. We have Mike Rounds. We have across the political spectrum inside the United States Senate, we have virtually uniform support for a program that we've been involved at our New Paradigm Institute, that I have helped set up a New Paradigm Institute, which is a citizens-based group right on Capitol Hill. We're basically the only civilian group, non-government group inside the federal enclave on Capitol Hill to work directly with the members of the House and Senate to get them to pass a piece of legislation, which they have done in the United States Senate, setting up an entire mechanism by means of which to command every single one of our 6 military services, all 18 of our United States intelligence agencies, all 32 of our United States Defense Department agencies, and every single private aerospace corporation that has been put into possession secretly of any of this technology by our military to try to back engineer it. They command all of them to gather all of that information together. Every single scrap of paper, every report, every telephone message, every communication of any sort that relates to the UFO phenomenon and to the existence of this extraterrestrial civilization, to gather that all together and have it available as of October 20th of this year, 2 weeks basically before the upcoming election, that information is to be gathered together and provided. The Senate demanded that it be provided immediately on October 20th to the National Archives and to the members of the Senate and House Intelligence Committee, so that Congress would have possession of this information. So the United States Senate has spoken on this, and they're getting ready to do it again. They're getting ready to repass this same program, demanding that the president appoint a special board to review all of this information and make all of the information available to the public that is older than 25 years old. Now, this would entail all of the information about Roswell. It would entail all of the information about Betty and Barney Hill. It would entail all of the information about the Aztec crash. It would entail all of the information about the UFOs that shut off our nuclear weapons back in 1967. All of this information, this United States Senate has demanded be made public as of October 20th. Now, what's happened is the private aerospace industry that is in possession of some of this UFO craft want to be able to get patents on this technology so that they can make trillions of dollars throughout the next 10,000 years of the future on owning this technology and having to license it to our government instead of it being possessed by our government on behalf of all the people of the world. So this is a challenge. And what they have done is they have basically bribed 2 of the major members of the House of Representatives, one of whom is Michael Turner, who is the head of the Intelligence Committee in the House of Representatives. And they bribed the fellow who is the head of the Armed Services Committee inside the House of Representatives, Michael Rogers. They have bribed them basically by paying money to them to get them to stop this bill from being passed in the House of Representatives. And in our parliamentary system, in our governmental system, we have to have both houses of Congress approve this plan. We've already gotten it approved by the United States Senate. And these two men have persuaded Michael Johnson, who is the new Speaker of the House, to refuse to put that Senate bill on the floor for a vote in the House. Now, but very, very important, and I really hasten to make this clear, they have approved in the House the portion of that bill that has commanded all of our military services and intelligence agencies to gather all the information together and have it available by October 20th. The problem is they haven't commanded them to turn it over immediately to the National Archives. They just said you should turn it over as soon as possible, and so that there's this big gap in our success so far. We haven't gotten them to do that. Okay, and so now we're getting set to do it again. By the end of July here, the United States Senate is going to be approving the repassage of that same law that was passed a year ago by the Senate, commanding not only that all this information be gathered up by October 20th, and that it be presented to the National Archives immediately, but they've also passed a law commanding the president to set up a special board that is going to make public all of that information that's 25 years old or more. And they're going to have that board review all of the newer information that's been obtained since basically the year 2000. And make some of that available unless the president personally asks to have any piece of that information postponed. And they've imposed all kinds of very strict limits on what criteria the president can use to try to postpone any of that information. And then that board is supposed to release even the newer information. Okay, so we're on the very brink here, and people don't seem to realize this. We're on the very brink now of having this information made available to the people. And so we have succeeded to some significant degree in this long 47-year campaign that we've been involved in, that I've been involved in getting disclosure started. And so that we've been successful in getting the United States House of Representatives, for example, the Oversight Committee, to hold a hearing a year ago on the 26th of July, in which one of the people on the secret task force inside the Pentagon, David Grush, to come forward and actually testify in open hearings in the House of Representatives on January 26th of 2023, stating that our government is in possession of a non-human origin extraterrestrial spacecraft and the bodies of the occupants of the craft that have been established to be non-human. Okay? That testimony has been provided now even in the House of Representatives, in addition to the command that the Senate has passed, that the president has to establish a UFO controlled disclosure campaign that is to be undertaken by the president to make this information available to the people. Now, that's where we are right now. And so we're hanging right on the edge of the success in getting disclosure done. What our New Paradigm Institute is doing, in addition to drafting legislation to protect the whistleblowers inside the intelligence community and inside the military to come forward and provide this information to Congress, that we have crafted a major statute through the New Paradigm Institute to enhance the protection of UFO whistleblowers. And we put it into the hands of the House of Representatives. Tim Burchett, the congressperson from Tennessee, and others have organized a caucus inside the House of Representatives to try to push back against those three individuals. The two that have been paid off by the private aerospace corporations, Mike Turner from Ohio, from the 10th District in Ohio, which is where Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is, to which they took the original craft from Roswell. And the other person, Mike Rogers, who's from the 2nd Congressional District in Alabama, which is where the Redstone rocket range is, where they're attempting to back engineer the technology that was recovered from the UFO craft, into a weapon system. That those two people who've been bribed, openly with money being basically delivered to them in brown paper sacks, of cash, to pay for their elections, are blocking this. And what we've done at the New Paradigm Institute is we have drafted legislation to protect the whistleblowers to come forward, to keep them from being retaliated against. And we are in the process also now of participating in attempting to appoint the members of this review board that the president has been directed, indeed, by the Senate to appoint, that are going to release the information to the public. That we are one of the citizen groups, the New Paradigm Institute, that have been authorized by the previous law passed by the Senate to help nominate people to this 9-person board. And our New Paradigm Institute is also dedicated to trying to determine, all importantly, what is it we're going to do once this disclosure starts and the information starts to roll out. How are we going to adjust our economic system? How are we going to readjust the geopolitical structures of our planet? How are we going to readjust the major religious institutions on our planet to accommodate this extraordinarily new information that is going to be coming to us from the extraterrestrial civilization? We find ourselves in a situation that is analogous to the tiny island in the South Pacific back in the mid-1950s. The tribe that lived there didn't realize there was a whole world that existed outside of their island. And as soon as they were contacted by the outside civilization on our planet, it was demonstrated to them that their culture was so parochial and so constricted in what it understood about reality that within months, their entire culture collapsed. Okay? We cannot afford to have that happen to us. What we have to do is we have to, in addition to be pushing to get the disclosure made, we need to make sure that it's done in a controlled and responsible manner so that our institutions can adjust to this information as it is becoming available to us. Okay? That this is what the new paradigm is all about. What is the new human worldview that is going to accept the reality that we as a human species, the Homo sapiens on this planet, are not in fact the only intelligent, sentient beings in the universe? I mean, this is an extraordinary moment in our human family, in our entire human history, that virtually the entire spectrum of human worldviews that range all the way from the authoritarian to the reactionary, to the moderate, to the conservative, to the liberal, to the progressive, to even the utopian worldviews of our human family are all predicated upon the assumption that we are the only intelligent, sentient life in the entire universe. This is going to be a rude awakening, and we're trying to prepare for this at the New Paradigm Institute. We need other people's help to do this. We've gotten ourselves established. We have a 501c3 U.S. government recognized tax deductible institute that is established on Capitol Hill to undertake this process. In that we've got over 550 people have reached out to us to volunteer their services to help us design this new paradigm. And to make sure that the process by means of which the UFO and extraterrestrial information is conveyed to our people around the world, that this is done in a responsible and choreographed process by means of which we can accommodate this information and absorb it and be adjusting our institutions to accommodate this. That's what the New Paradigm Institute is all about. And I know that this is the first time that a lot of the listeners are finding out about this, but it's important that they know what's really going on behind the scenes. My job as a public advocate, as the public justice advocate for this movement, is to now let people know that this is happening, and so that you can participate in this. Now, most of you aren't going to be able to, come to Washington and participate in person in these activities, but many of you can do so by remote access through the internet to help us. We have, for example, an entire team of lawyers now that have been involved in drafting the legislation to provide enhanced protections for the UFO whistleblowers. We have academics. We have over 36 academics that are professors at universities around the country, all the way from Harvard University to Ohio State University and others, that have been longing to be able to teach about the extraterrestrial civilization, to be able to teach about the knowledge that we have, the more expansive knowledge that we have, that is in fact already available, but have been being suppressed, as Dr. John Mack was at Harvard, and being able to share this information with their students. We need to prepare that whole process for our universities around the world to be prepared to teach courses to the next generation of students about this information. We have to get our churches and synagogues and mosques, we have to get them prepared to start integrating this information and sharing it with all of their devotees. This has to happen. The scientists, the physicists in our world have to start to absorb this new information about the realm of physics that we're completely unaware of at the present time. Because it's important to understand that some of these civilizations have existed for 1 billion years more than our civilization here on this planet. Some of them have existed for as much as 6 billion years more than on our planet. So they've had that much additional time to explore the secrets of physics, the secrets of theology, the secrets of the capabilities of our physical bodies, to be able to engage in telepathic communication, for example, precognition, remote viewing. There's all kinds of things that our human bodies are capable of doing that have been kept secret from the people, even by our own religious institutions, that they have to disclose this information now to start becoming prepared for how we can adjust to the relationship that we're going to be having with this extraterrestrial civilization. That's what the New Paradigm Institute is all about. And so all people need to do is contact us at newparadigminstitute.org. You can see this on your screen, and contact us. Volunteer to work with us. Let us know what your skills are. Let us know what your time availability is. Let us know what your professional status is. If you're at universities or you're inside, scientific laboratories, if you're inside religious institutions, let us know where you are so that we can reach out and coordinate with you and share this information that is becoming available. This is what we need to do. And so that's why I've come here today to talk with you. There's all kinds of things going on in our world. There's war going on in the Middle East. There's war going on in Eastern Europe. Presidential campaign is going on. There are attempted assassinations of political candidates going on. There's all kinds of things going on our planet, which are in fact completely inconsistent with the larger knowledge that we now are getting ready to have. We realize that we are out of tune, and we are much more than just out of tune with reality. We're playing an entirely different song. We're not in touch with reality, that we're out of touch with reality itself. So we have to start absorbing the larger dimensions of reality that can help us bring peace to our planet, that can bring prosperity to our planet, that can protect our environment here on our planet, that can protect our species here on this planet and all the other species that are here. This is a very, very valuable resource to our galaxy, the life forms that are generated on our planet. We have to protect them. That is part of the responsibility of the New Paradigm Institute. So we want you to come and contact us at newparadigminstitute.org. You will be immediately provided access to contacting the congressperson and your United States senators. If you contact us, just give us your name and your zip code. It'll immediately let you know who your congressperson is and senator. You don't even have to do anything else. It'll send an automatic communication to your
That's great.
congressperson. You know,
Just to add to that, because I think it's important. Did you mention that you also take donations? Is that correct?
yeah, that this is in order to do our work, we need to hire people. We have volunteers, but we need to have volunteer coordinators. We need to have people helping to maintain our website. We have a big $60,000 website that is going up today, that is coming up today. When you go to newparadigminstitute.org, you're going to see our new website. We have gone into debt to have a $60,000 website that is going to be responsive to you. Okay, that you can contact us. Everybody in all 435 congressional districts are going to be able to link into our website and to find out all about what can be done in your own congressional district, where the newspapers are, to whom you can write letters to the editor, where all of the meeting places are, where you can gather people together. How you can organize a high school assembly to tell the studentry about what's going on here. How you can go to your local Kiwanis Club in the American Legion Club. These are things that you don't necessarily know how to do because people haven't been active in this. Up until this point in time, the UFO community has been a comparatively small community where people go and meet annually and share with each other the information that is known. Now we're going to be moving into an entirely new stage of this. If you want to participate with the New Paradigm Institute in going to this next step of achieving disclosure and participating in designing and articulating a new human worldview, a new paradigm that we can through which we can accommodate ourselves to all of this new information. We need your contributions. They're all completely tax deductible. That you're going to have to pay that money into taxes anyhow. What you can do is that you can direct a portion of your money, your annual income, into the contribution and take it as a total tax deduction. Okay, you can do that. And you can participate, and we can get back to you and keep you informed about what the developments are that are going on so you can get much more detailed information. You can become a participant in the New Paradigm Institute. But that is a need. We need to be straightforward about that. That we all have just public interest salaries. I'm not one of these $600 an hour attorneys. I could be if I'd wanted to be. We're doing this at a base level. We need your financial support to be successful. That all you have to do is go to newparadigminstitute.org and send in, $10 or agree to give $10 a month or $50 a month, or $100 a month. This is one of the most extraordinarily important things that's happening in the world. By giving hundreds of millions of dollars to the Democratic Party or Republican Party right now isn't potentially the most important thing that you could be doing. We're just asking for your help on this and your participation.
I think I can speak for Tara, and we'd love to be a part of this, and we'll start putting the website on our YouTube channel so that people can go to it and be a part of it, donate, and all that. So you just mentioned something really interesting. Do you think that the current presidential campaign will make any reference to the UPA or this phenomenon going on, like disclosure?
We've tried to get them to pay attention to this. I mean, but as you can see, the wheels are coming off. Both of these campaigns. The both political parties are in the process of nominating someone that 82% of the people in the country don't support either one of them being president, and yet hundreds of millions of dollars are being poured into the political parties that have attached themselves to these two candidates. There's going to be at least a temporary period here where people are going to be much more sympathetic to Donald Trump because because of the attempted assassination against him. That's a normal human reaction. But it doesn't change what his policies are and how completely destructive they're going to be to the country. And, the Democratic Party is completely locked down on having President Biden be their candidate. The problem is that only 38% of the people, are willing to vote for him.
Are they really locked down though? And not to get too political, but are they really locked down with him? Because I think
there's a process. There's a process going on. You're absolutely correct, in which the Democratic Party structures are trying to figure out what to do about this. But the fact is, they still keep maintaining that unless and until Joe Biden himself personally agrees that he's going to release his delegates to vote for someone else, or more importantly, direct his delegates to vote for Kamala Harris as the vice president to ascend into the presidency, that unless he personally decides to do that, they're still attached to allowing him to be the candidate. Now that's a dysfunction. The political parties have taken over the democratic decision-making process of our entire population, and our people are acquiescing to that. We can't continue to do that. We've got to step up and take responsibility for this. This is going on in the outside world, as are the two wars that are going on, as are the global climate change, which is still going on. And here you have one of the presidential candidates, Donald Trump, saying one of the first things he's going to do when he comes in and becomes a dictator is going to order all the massive drilling, drill, baby, drill, massively increase the drilling of oil and natural gas on our planet, and exacerbate the global climate change crisis that is coming. That people don't realize that, but the UFO people realize this. They've been telling people about this when they encounter them, saying, look at that you're destroying the climatic system of your planet. The permafrost areas of our planet that are at the Arctic Circle, is thawing out. And there are literally trillions of tons of methane gas trapped underneath the permafrost. Our planet has figured out how to seal that off and to keep it from coming into the atmosphere. But the rapid increase in the temperatures on our planet now, caused by the burning of the fossil fuels and the ejecting of those into our atmosphere, are thawing out, or raising the global mean temperature. They're thawing out the permafrost. And there are these huge plumes of methane gas that are coming up into our atmosphere that are 40 times more damaging to our atmosphere than is carbon that's being put into the atmosphere by fossil fuel. These are things that we are out of tune. We are out of tune with reality itself, and so that we can't just go and put someone in charge who's so myopically focused that he thinks that just massively increasing the production of oil and gas from our planet is going to be making rich people richer. That's all that it's going to do. That is distracting us. That is, those kind of choices we have to make are distracting us from this major event that's taking place on our planet of discovering that we are not alone.
Well, Danny, I could talk to you for days about this information. I have a dozen more questions for you, so we'll have to have you back another time, but I know we're coming up on time here. So just in closing, I just had one final question for you. I was recently talking with a friend about what disclosure will look like, because she was asking, I don't understand why this is such a big deal. It was so hard for me to put into words how big of a deal this really is and how many areas of our lives it will actually touch, across the spectrum. And I'm just curious, what is your thought on what that post-disclosure world will look like?
Well, this is what we're in the process of doing at the New Paradigm Institute. This is one of the primary missions of the New Paradigm Institute, is to articulate what this new paradigm is going to look like. But one of the things that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to figure out how to coordinate among all 193 of the countries of the world a unified response to the arrival of this extraterrestrial civilization onto our planet. We need to decide whether we're going to be allies with the new civilization. Are we going to work cooperatively with them? Are we going to be able to absorb the information that they're making available? One of the provisions of the Senate bill that has been passed and is getting set to be passed again this month is to set up this panel that is going to design a UFO controlled disclosure campaign plan. And they're going to present that to the president. That's what is being done right now. The new paradigm itself is going to be our first step out into the galaxy. We're going to have emissaries that are going to be going to these other planets, that are going to be visiting these other planets, that are going to be becoming aware of what their culture is like, how they have overcome some of the same problems we're presently facing, how they have done that in their past. It has enabled them to survive for 1 billion years. These are things that we're all going to be doing right now. It's going to be an extraordinarily exciting period. And I believe that the universities are going to have to play a very major role in this. They're going to have adult education programs. We have the infrastructure in place right now. And we have these academics for disclosure that we have at the New Paradigm Institute now working on this, how they can prepare the universities to educate not only the next generation of our human species on how to adjust to this new reality, but they have adult education programs that citizens can go to their local universities, in their local community colleges, and have a set of curriculum that are going to be sharing this information. This is what we're doing at the New Paradigm Institute, trying to figure out how we can utilize the present structures that we have to generate this information out to the public and engage the public ourselves in making these decisions as to what our world is going to be like following this disclosure. This has to be a democratic process. And we know that the national security state people and the military and in the intelligence community cannot be trusted to make this decision appropriately. And our elected representatives at the present time have to prepare for how to adjust our economic and political structures. But the people ourselves have to be involved in making these fundamental decisions. And that's what we're inviting everybody to participate in through the New Paradigm Institute, so that we are going to be the ones who answer that question. What is this new paradigm post-disclosure going to look like? If you want to participate in helping to make that set of decisions, contact us at the New Paradigm Institute and become a participant in this process yourself.
Well, I think that is such a great resource for people, and I know a lot of people will benefit from that. So we just thank you so much for putting that together for everyone. And Danny, we just also want to thank you for your time today and all that you're doing to bring disclosure to the people, and for just being such an amazing advocate for social justice. We appreciate all that you do, and thank you so much again for your time today. We appreciate you.
Terrific. It's a privilege to get to spend the time with all the people that are listening.
Hi, Danny.